Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of SimplePractice for today's webinar on getting started with insurance billing. Before we get started with introductions and agenda, a few things at the top I want to mention. Today we'll be discussing getting started with insurance with our insurance expert, Barbara Griswold. We'll be talking about it as it practically applies to billing and working with insurance companies. We will not be discussing specifically how to bill insurance within a SimplePractice account. If you have questions about billing within your SimplePractice account, how to navigate the product, how to navigate submitting a claim, I recommend visiting support.simplepractice.com. From there, you can view our entire library of resources that include getting started classes, as well as you'll be able to contact our support from there when we have a live class that is specifically dedicated to learning how to bill insurance within the product. But today we're going to be talking about it again as it applies to actually the act of billing and working with those insurance companies and everything that you need to get started. So we'll go to the next slide, where we'll look at the agenda. So we have about an hour today where we will first kick off by introducing our speakers, and then we will go through our pre-submitted questions. And if there's extra time at the end, we will answer questions live from the audience that you can write in on your panel here. And this another note, if you're experiencing any technical issues, please put that in your chat box on the side. That's also where you can direct questions, but we will not get to those questions until the very end. And this webinar will be recorded and it will be available, which I'll show you on the next slide where you can find that. But just want to make that known at the top.
Oops.
Oh, that's in a couple slides, I guess. So just to kick things off, I'm Maggie. I'll be moderating for today. I work at SimplePractice. I have been working in the healthcare industry for 6 years. I guess it's 7 now. I haven't updated this in a while. I care deeply about making health services accessible. I find it is an important element of public health, and I believe that empowering providers to take on insurance can open the door for a ton of people to receive care. And I'll kick it over to Barbara.
Hey. Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Griswold, and I'm going to be kind of the speaker today. I am a practice consultant, and I work with therapists all over the country to help them build their practices. I'm also author of Navigating the Insurance Maze, the therapist's complete guide to working with insurance and whether you should. I've been in private practice for more than 30 years. I'm working with dozens of insurance plans, so some of my experience is just on the job training and making more mistakes than you want to know. And I just now provide consultations and trainings to therapists all over the country about insurance, documentation, practice building, and you're welcome to contact me through my website, theinsurancemaze.com.
Great. And then, as I mentioned before, where we'll be able to find this webinar recording after, and if you have any colleagues that couldn't make the recording today, or if you have to drop off early, rest assured you'll be able to find this video along with the vast library that Barbara has helped us put together of other webinars at simplepractice.com/askabiller series. This webinar will likely be available close to the beginning of next week. As far as when it will be added to the site, but feel free to visit that site at any time and access any of these videos for free. And then one more thing I want to mention at the top, just as a potential issue for the webinar, I do have 2 dogs here, so I want to apologize in advance if they start barking. I'm just going to mute myself immediately. So we're still acclimating to working from home here. And I'll let Barbara take it from there.
Yeah, so before we answered some of the questions that were pre-submitted, I kind of realized that it would be helpful to have just kind of a basic vocabulary lesson with insurance, because obviously it's like speaking another language when you talk to insurance. And if we don't all have this basic vocabulary and know what we're meaning when we use a word, then all your questions become a little more complicated. So I thought, let's just put them all together at the beginning, and I'll create this little slide. So when we talk about a network or being a network or a panel, or being a network or a panel provider. What we're talking about is someone who has a therapist who has signed a contract with an insurance plan. And we'll talk about what that actually means later because a question came in about that. But this is just anyone who has signed a contract to be a provider, to be a therapist for that health plan. So you can be called a network provider, you can be called a panel provider. It's the same thing. Now, what about, put together by accident, out of network provider? That's anyone who hasn't signed a contract with that particular plan. You don't have to do anything to become an out of network provider. You don't have to like sign an out of network provider contract. Anyone who you just breathe and you're automatically an out of network provider. So not signing a contract with a plan means you are out of network provider, or sometimes called an OON provider. Now, what about this word credentialing or contracting? This is basically just fancy words for the process that you go through to join a health network and to become a network or a panel provider. So it's the series of paperwork that you go through. It's a series of whatever background checks that they'll do on you or information that they'll get from you before they will say, yes, we approve you to become one of our network or panel providers. It's alternately called credentialing or contracting. Now here's a big topic I could talk about for hours, but I'm just gonna try to. Deductible. We all need to understand deductibles, whether you're in network or out of network. A deductible is the amount that a client might have to pay out of pocket before insurance begins to reimburse. These days, you may know this from your own health insurance. Many insurance plans have really high deductible. I've seen $4,000, I've seen $6,000. So basically, the way that they do it is they're like, hey, we'll keep your monthly premiums very small. But basically they're saying, yeah, this is catastrophic coverage. We are only going to pay after you've paid the first $6,000 out of your pocket of all your health care expenses for the year, and then we'll pay. So it's something that you should look at when you get a health plan, but also that you need to look at when a client comes to you, that they may have a deductible that needs to be used up before you are going to be paid by the health plan, or that's if you're in network or out of network before the client is going to get reimbursed. And not all plans will have a deductible. It really depends what plan the client actually has. So you'll have to look at what their deductible is. And sometimes a plan may waive the deductible if the client sees a network provider. So these are all questions you're going to need to ask up front. And don't worry, you don't have to make a list of all the questions. I got you covered for that in a little bit. So we'll talk a lot more about the deductible later, but now what about co-payments and co-insurance? Are they the same thing? Are they different? This is something that a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't understand until I had been working with insurance for a long time. These are not the same thing. A co-payment is a flat fee that your client's insurance may need them to pay every time they see a therapist or a doctor or whatever. So maybe they have a $10 co-payment every time they see you. Or the plan may say, no, you have a 10% co-insurance, and then they have to pay 10% of whatever the rate is that the insurance plan has negotiated with you. We'll talk about contracted rates later. But these are not the same things, and you have to understand that difference. So co-payment is a flat fee. Co-insurance is a percentage of the agreed upon rate between you and the insurance panel if you're a network provider. I know that's a lot to take in if you're brand new to this. Don't worry, hopefully as we keep talking, some of this will get more clear. Okay, now Maggie, we can do some questions here that were pre-submitted.
Dive into some questions. So our first question here is, what are some of the pros and cons of joining an insurance plan?
Yeah, I didn't know whether to put this question at the end of our slides or at the beginning, so we'll talk. I thought, well, that's probably one of the first questions on people's mind. I decided to put cons first because we all kind of know some of the cons. Let's get those kind of out of the way. Obviously, the biggest complaint probably is what we think are low reimbursement rates compared to our full fees. Typically, let's say it could be up to half of your normal reimbursement rate that you would get from a client who is just like calling you up and walking in off the street and doesn't have insurance. It depends on the insurance plan, though. There's really no way to say what an insurance plan, they don't all pay the same. It's going to depend on your area. It's going to depend on your license. It's going to depend on a lot of different things. We did a whole Ask a Biller on rates and raises that you might want to check out if you're really interested in, I think was called Rates, Raises, and Resignations, I think. So all about, how do they choose rates and how can you get raises and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so one of the cons is that, as most people know, they're not going to pay you as much as your private pay fee. So this might mean that you end up doing, 1.5 sessions for the same reimbursement as you would get for one, private pay session, right? More time spent outside the session doing things like claim filing. Certainly more time spent on the phone. You might be checking coverage for a client, following up on a problem claim, possibly having treatment reviewed, which we'll talk more about. So basically, it's not just the time you're putting in meeting with the client, you're now doing some unpaid stuff outside of the sessions. And this is all the parts that we really don't care for. Now, if you're also, here's something to think about. If right now you're seeing somebody in your practice and you join his insurance plan, you now have to offer him the plan discount rate. So this happened to me a couple times when I was seeing somebody, I was getting paid my full fee, I joined their insurance plan, and I really had to, by my contract, offer that person the benefits of memberships and seeing a network provider. So I actually lost money for that particular person. So it's just something to keep in mind. People don't always think about that you have to kind of ask your current clients, hey, do any of you have this health plan that I just joined? And if so, you have to then switch over to giving them the discounted price. Again, we'll talk more about what it means to join a plan. But what are some of the pros? This is, something that I think people are they don't really look at the pros of joining plans beyond, it's very easy to see all the things that are annoying about insurance plans. I can tell you that. It certainly can fill empty slots in your practice. I mean, if you have empty slots in your practice, you're getting zero for those empty slots. So maybe getting a lower fee, a discounted fee, is better than zero. Financially, that just works out better. I certainly feel that it has filled my practice. Again, I've been doing this 30 years, and I pretty much have never had an empty times that I was really low in number of people. I always had people calling me. Right now, I probably get 5 calls a day or 5 people contacting me through email and wanting, because of I do take insurance, and it is something that people are looking for. So they've paid a lot of money to, have insurance, and they really want to have somebody who's on their plan. It really does reduce your need to market yourself. Insurance directories can act as advertising, free advertising. So if you're not one who likes to market yourself, it's a great way to put yourself out there without doing any extra work. Also, you may lose potential clients if you don't accept insurance. I definitely hear this from folks who don't accept insurance, that people call them up and then they lose those clients because they don't accept insurance, or clients tend to stay longer because they have insurance and they can come more often, they drop out less. It's a much less of it. Finances are much less of an issue for my insurance clients. It's wonderful. They pay their $10 copayment or the $20 copayment when they come in. It's so affordable. They can come weekly. They can come for years if they need to. it doesn't become that they have to kind of figure out whether they can afford to come or not and stretch out appointments and things like that. It prevents income fluctuations of an all private pay practice. For many people, when you're in private pay practice, you may not be getting as many people. And so sometimes you might have a lot of clients and sometimes you might not, and that may be very difficult for you financially. So having that insurance, even though you're getting paid a little bit less for each session that you do, it is a stable referral source. It has been for me at least. And here's probably the biggest reason that I have continued to take insurance over the years is that it makes therapy more accessible to clients of all income levels. I have a much more diversified client practice. I see clients who could never afford to pay out of pocket, people with all different life situations and socioeconomic stations. So it's just like, I really enjoy that part of being able to see people who I could never have seen otherwise. So those are just some reasons.
It's a great list of considerations. And our next question comes from Anya, and it is that I fear working with insurance plans will mean losing clinical autonomy. Is this a realistic concern?
Yeah, I'd say this is one of, besides the financial one and the discounted rates and having to deal with claims and things like that, I think this is a really big concern for people. I don't know, maybe I've drank the Kool-Aid, but I don't feel like that. I feel like I make whatever clinical choices I want to make. And with my client, we're a team, we figure out what needs to happen, and nobody tells me what to do in my sessions. Now, and we'll talk more about clinical, insurance plan can certainly call me up and say, hey, can you tell me why you're meeting that frequently and with that person, or can you tell me, they're really not going to tell you what to do. They may say, well, we don't know that we think that from what you're describing that we think twice a week sessions is necessary and we'll only pay for one. So they're going to tell you like what they're going to want to pay for. And then you can figure out whether that's, clinically you think that's sound. And if you think it's not sound, you can fight for more. I've done that before. I've said, no, I don't agree. I want to talk to your clinical director, and I've won. But other than that, the client still can choose to see you more frequently than the insurance plan will pay for. The insurance plan doesn't get to tell you how to be a therapist and how many times to see people. They only will just say what they'll pay for. So I think we have to remember that. I don't feel like I lose clinical autonomy. Nobody tells me how to be a therapist, and that's just ethically, I always recommend to clients what I think is ethically in their best interest. So yeah, I don't feel this is the case. All right.
All right, and our next question is, how do I choose which insurance plans to apply to? Is there a way to find out reimbursement rates before going through the process of contracting with an insurance company?
Yeah. Oh, lots of good questions. So I'm going to tell you a way to apply to insurance plans a little bit later, but I think you have to think of it like a job search. Many insurance plans are not open to anybody who wants to apply. They say that they're full. They try to keep basically the number of providers on their panels as small as possible, which seems crazy, doesn't it? Seems like they should be the opposite. But it actually costs them money for every person that they add to their panels. They have to manage and make sure that your license is up to date, and make sure your malpractice is up to date, and make sure they've done a background check, and basically they have to manage their database. So they try to keep you it as small as possible, and so that you're going to find out sometimes when you apply that they'll say, we're full. So it's kind of like a job search. You don't want to say, oh, I'm only going to apply to Apple and Google, and that's it. I mean, I think you have to look at it the opposite way. Maybe I mean, you definitely want to start with asking around your colleagues, which are the insurance plans that you like working with, which are the ones I should maybe avoid. So I usually start with colleagues and information like that, but I'm going to tell you a way, an application that's a process that's a little bit backwards that I would recommend. Is there a way to find out reimbursement rate? Let's take that one on though. It's really hard. Your colleagues are not really supposed to share what they're being paid. And in public forums, you can't like go on to like a Google group and say, hey, what are you guys being paid by Aetna? Technically, at least according to the lawyers that I've talked to, you know, we're not supposed to be basically sharing and saying, hey, I can't believe they're paying you so little. Let's all together talk about that in any public forum. And then also, you know, let's all maybe try to threaten to resign or anything like that. You have to be careful about those type of things because basically they contract with us individually. In any case, the point is that they don't really want to let out the reimbursement rates in a public manner because they might be paying person A more and person B something else. So you'll be surprised right now if I were to interview 100 therapists who were with Aetna, they may be getting, you know, 10 different reimbursement rates because they've negotiated a raise or because it came out at a different time or whatever. So Aetna doesn't really maybe want to put out their reimbursement rates sometimes before, I'm just using that as an example, contracting with you. So sometimes you can ask up front, sometimes you have to go through the process of basically putting in an application, and if they send you the contract, it'll be there. So it does seem backwards, I know. What can I tell you? All right.
All right. And next question from Regina. Is it smart to be on multiple insurance panels?
Yeah, Regina, I think so. I think ideally having a couple at least insurance panels is good. You never know. Some of them may be completely bust and you don't get any clients from them. Others you might get more. So it's kind of good to be on a couple at least. You don't want to be on 25 insurance panels like I used to be. And no matter who walked through the door, I had their insurance, and then every session was discounted in some manner. I didn't have any private pay clients for a while, but I think it's a good idea to get on a couple if you can, and then you can figure out which ones you like to work with, and you can resign from the ones that you don't. And you know, getting it down to a couple sources of good referrals is probably a good idea. And again,
It's a great point to, you know, consider your time too.
Yeah, and also, you know, if you have then enough people who are private pay, but you're filling those empty slots, it's kind of, again, is a good stable income source, which is good.
All right. And then what are the steps to joining a plan? Where do we begin? How long does it usually take? Well, how much time do we have?
Yeah, we could do a whole thing on that. So you know, there's so many different ways. They want you to go to their websites probably and fill out this very minimal online questionnaire or download it and send it to them. And then they'll usually often say, never mind, we don't want you because you didn't check the proper boxes or whatever. We don't need people in your area. I know I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's so many therapists here that they're kind of, I think they automatically look at my zip code and just say no for some of the plans. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't always, never say, I'm not going to bother trying because I don't think I can get on a plan. That is, you know, that's like, I'm not going to apply for jobs because I don't think I can get one. No, you should always try. But where do you begin and how long does it usually take? Let me take that last question. It may take 6 months is probably a good average. The shortest probably would be 3 months. It could be 9 months. It's very long process. So it's something you want to start way in advance or as soon as possible. Don't procrastinate on this because we're going to show you the process in the next slide here. So the steps that I encourage, and this is going to sound backwards and weird, but You might want to call the plan or go to the plan website for information about joining plans, but I would get prepared to ignore whatever it says there. Definitely ignore them if they say that they're full. So if you call the plan, definitely find out how to apply, if they and where to, where to send a letter of interest or something like that. And then I would encourage you, and yes, snail mail. I know some of you probably haven't licked an envelope in forever, but I would encourage you to send a letter of interest and your resume by snail mail. Now, I said email too, but it's hard sometimes to get the email to send it to. It's probably a little easier to find the snail mail address of the provider relations. Might not be, but if you can get the email, that's okay. Now, if you're in California, I do have a mailing label list of more than 50 California health plans. I'm going to tell you how to get that, and I'll give you a link for that, but it is something that you can purchase. I've put it on sale for half off for you folks, and you can just slap those make like, this sounds crazy, but make let's say you wanted to do this, send 50, make copies of your resume, 50 of them, get your letter of interest, sorry about that, letter of interest for each one, send it out. While you're watching some Bachelorette rerun, you can just slap those on, send them out. Now you're all thinking, I don't want to get on 50 health plans. Of course you don't. But what's going to come back is you're going to get rejection letters, you're going to get no response, and then maybe 10 are going to say, hey, we're interested in you from what you said in your letter of interest, and here's an application for you to fill out. And then you send in your application maybe for 10 of them, and then maybe 4 or 5 of them are going to send you back a contract that you can look at and decide whether you might want to join. So it may sound like a lot of work, but in a way it saves you from having to call 50 health plans, and that's why you're only, you're kind of being courted by the people who have the availability and the interest in you when you finally get those contracts. If you are outside of California, ask your colleagues or go to the State Department of Insurance website to get a list of health plans that operate in your state. That would be a good place to start. Okay, so what happens? If they're interested in you, you sent this letter of interest, they're going to send you an application. You're going to return that application and you're going to fill out everything on it. If you miss anything, they might have to send it back. So be very careful about that one. If they're still interested, they'll send you a contract. You're going to fill that out and sign it basically and return it to them. Then they send you a welcome letter and give you the date that you're welcome and when you're effective with their network, and a countersigned contract. So this is why it takes so long. It goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. If they say they're full, try again in 6 months. So keep excellent records. I kept a little folder when I was doing this for each one of the plans I was applying to, and kind of documentate every step I had taken, who I had talked to, when I had applied, any correspondence from them, kind of made a note of when I needed to recheck with them. So it's very time consuming, but when you don't have as many clients as you would want, this is a thing to do whenever you have a client cancellation. That's what I was doing. Every time I got a cancellation, I would just like sit down and keep working on this little project I had going. So I got you covered for showing up today or for listening to this recording. I have 2 freebies that I'm giving you. One is a sample letter of interest. So like what do you say? My notifications, I gotta turn that off, sorry. Sample letter of interest that you would send to an insurance plan saying, hey, I wanna join your network, and here's why, even if you're full, you should, accept me. Here, the letter is a chance for you to tap dance for them about why you are someone that they need to let on the panel whereas you might not have gotten that opportunity online on their little online application. And it really works. I've seen it work time and time again. I've coached people all over the country, and we've done this, and it has been effective. Okay, so there's the sample letter of interest. I'll talk more about the other handout, which is the checking coverage handout, which I'm giving you for free also. You'll see highlighted at the bottom of this page, theinsurancemaze.com/SPJoin. Write that down now. That is going to be the site where everything, all the freebies are going to be, and then the links for other cool stuff that you're going to want, like the bonus for Californians, the link to the mailing labels for the 50 California health plans. You can join my mailing list there. I have a lot of other cool resources. So write it down now, theinsurancemaze.com/SPJoin. We'll come back to that a couple times so you can make sure you have that.
And I'll put this in the chat as well.
Thank you.
All right, and our next question is, do all clients with health insurance have the same coverage?
Yeah,
Quick
this
answer
is
here.
yeah, sorry. So yeah, no, the answer is no. That's a great question, Tom. Basically, this is a big common myth. Like, I might have 7 clients who have Anthem Blue Cross, and each one of them have different coverage completely, particularly with telehealth. You know, I might have somebody who their co-payments are being waived and they're being fully paid by the insurance plan due to the pandemic. I might have others that were waived for a while and now they're not being waived. I might have people who it never was waived, they still have to pay their co-payments. I might have people with a $50 co-payment that they have to pay every time. I might have clients who have no co-payment every time. I mean, and they're all Anthem clients. So one of the biggest mistakes we make is that we assume, oh, I already understand because I have one Anthem client, how all my Anthem clients are going to be. No, don't ever do that. Don't assume. So even clients with the same health plan may have different coverage and co-pays. Now let's talk about some basics in the area of coverage that's important to know. There's 4 basic types of health plans that we need to know about. HMOs, which is also health maintenance organizations, and EPOs, which is less common, exclusive provider organizations. They only cover network providers. So if my client has an HMO with Aetna, let's say, and I'm not an Aetna provider, he will not be covered to see me. Okay, an Aetna HMO is only going to cover Aetna network provider. So that's something that for you to know when a client calls up. Now, if that client has an Aetna PPO, preferred provider, or a POS, point of service plan, he might have coverage for network providers and out-of-network providers. And usually the way that works is the client gets to get reimbursement when he goes out of network, but he's probably going to end up paying more when he goes out of network. So again, even a client who has Aetna, they may have wildly different coverage based on whether they have an HMO plan or a PPO plan. In answer to that last question. So this is something that's a good thing for you to know when you're looking at a health plan card.
It's also helpful to see those things spelled out, because I know a lot of times we just tend to speak in acronyms with insurance, but it's nice to see what those actually represent. And then our next question from Maria: if I join an insurance plan, can my treatment be reviewed by that plan?
Yeah, unfortunately, Maria, yes, that's the case. In fact, even if you're an out-of-network provider, if you've never signed a network, you've never signed a network contract, but your client turns in a super bill or invoice to the plan to get reimbursed, treatment can be reviewed by the plan. So whenever the plan is involved in payment for your services, it's far more likely to happen when you are a network provider, though. Now, I know people panic about these treatment reviews, but again, as I said before, you know, if you're making good clinical decisions and you learn how to speak to insurance, I've almost never been refused to cover the things that I want to cover. And 99% of it is how you talk to the plan about what you're doing. So if you ever get a treatment review request, just contact me and I will walk you through, we'll do a little role play and I will tell you exactly, we'll rehearse it basically for your particular case. And almost every situation, people say, oh my gosh, the role play that I did with you was far harder than the actual, it was a piece of cake when I actually did the treatment review with the clinical advisor. So, I mean, again, I just see them as, I know the case, I know why I'm making clinical choices I do, and I will explain that to them, and then they will go away. They're just doing their job. So I don't think we have to be as fearful of it as we sometimes are. And frankly, just to let you know, I've probably had one treatment review every 4 years. I mean, it depends, but if you have that sense that this is going to happen like frequently and constantly, it's really probably not a realistic fear.
And our next question is, when I'm joining a plan, can I ask for more money than they're offering? And how can I ask for raises later?
Yeah, it's definitely a great question. You can always negotiate your whatever they're offering you. I will say that it's often hard to do that going in the door, unless you are like bilingual. Many bilingual therapists don't realize that very often they can get more money right in the door, especially if your second language is something that's something they need. So they typically will pay more for bilingual therapists, or if you have something that they really, really are in dire need of, some kind of specialty training or something that it needs to be something probably pretty big. But normally going in the door, they're not going to want to. They're going to want to see some track record with you for a couple of years usually before they give you a raise. But definitely you can ask for raises later. People get them, people ask for them. And I have an article about that. And I coach people on how to ask for raises, like interview you and I like, what is it that we should highlight in your request for a raise? But definitely they can be gotten.
And we actually have a webinar on that as well, that in the link that I've shared out, simplepractice.com/askabillerseries,
Yeah.
you can revisit and listen to a whole hour on that specific topic.
Yeah.
And then our next question is, if I get involved with insurance, what am I really agreeing to?
Yeah, good question. So these are just some of the things. You are going to have to submit claims for any client who is a member of that particular insurance plan. It doesn't matter how they came to you. They may have come to you through word of mouth. It may have been somebody you saw in the past. It doesn't matter. As long as they have a little Aetna card in their pocket, and I keep picking on that and I don't know why. Cigna, let's say, as long as they have a Cigna card in their pocket and you're a Cigna network provider, you have to submit claims for that client. You can't say, here, I'll take money from you and you submit your claims. No, you are agreeing as part of them, their incentive for seeing a network provider, you're going to take care of the claims for them. You're going to accept that discounted fee. You're not going to bill them for any more. So if your usual fee is $160 and Cigna pays you $100, you can't turn around and make sure that the client pays you the $60 difference. No, you're going to accept that $100 as the full payment for that session. Now, if the way it works is if the client has a $20 copayment, that's all you're going to collect from that client, $20 copayment, and then Cigna should pay you the other $80, making it the total of $100 for your reimbursement. So that discount fee is also called your contracted rate. Like, what is the agreed upon rate in your contract that you have with Cigna for that particular CPT code? And you're only going to collect the client's copayment and deductible during the deductible period. And I just want to say that during the deductible period, when the insurance plan is not paying anything, you have to only collect that contracted rate. You don't get to charge them your full fee. Again, they always get the discounted rate, that contracted rate. I hope that makes sense. The insurance plan will pay you the rest up to the contracted fee, which I just mentioned. So they pay their 20 bucks and the insurance plan should pay you the other 80 unless it's during the deductible period. And then during the deductible period, that client would have to pay the entire $100.
And our next question from Donna, what are the most common reasons a claim might not be paid in full or might be rejected?
So many reasons, but here's some common ones. Late filing. When you become a network provider, they usually only give you a couple months to get that claim in. So we need to be really organized and make sure that you file those claims. They usually give you a 3-month window, I would say is probably the most common. After that, they might not pay a claim, even though you did great therapy and all that good stuff. Maybe it went to the deductible. Again, that's why you need to know up front like what the deductible is and make sure you're collecting that from the clients for those sessions. You don't want to build up this huge amount that the client's now having to pay you thousands because it went to the deductible and you didn't really realize it was going to do that. Yeah, we got that already. The diagnosis could be out of date. I just want to give you this website, www.icd10data.com. Sometimes if you have not been tuned into the insurance world, diagnoses codes do change, and ones that are still, if it comes back, sometimes you have used an old diagnosis code that has gone out of date. So if you go to this website, icd10data.com, type in your diagnosis code or the name, and make sure there's a little green triangle next to the code that you're using, and that says go. That's good to go. If there's a little red one, that means it's out of date. It's free, use it. You might have missing something on your claim form or super bill, like a diagnosis, a CPT code, a telehealth modifier, place of service code. You submitted it to the wrong address or the wrong insurance plan, and this often happens when we don't really, we just use the address that's on the card, or the client tells us what insurance plan they have, and we haven't really followed up and to be sure. Or the client is not covered at the time of service or for the service that you provided. So sometimes maybe their insurance changed and you didn't realize it. So try to make sure you're at. Yeah.
Another thing I would add here that's similar to client not covered, but is more of a puzzle to solve, is if you have some of your client's information wrong. So if you have any demographic information wrong, date of birth, spelling of their name.
Or you typed in the wrong number for one of their subscriber number or something very simple. It could be, yeah, I've done that before.
So it's super important to have their card on file. So that's usually the first place I'll go to check. Did I miss anything? Did I spell something wrong? Did I put a nickname instead of their full name? So that's a good place too. And our next question from Terry, what is the most common mistake that new clinicians make with insurance billing?
Terry, thank you for this question. I would say it's not calling the insurance plan upfront to check coverage before seeing the client and making assumptions. Now, you're going to tell me I don't have time for every new client I have to call and sit on the phone on hold and check their coverage. And I'm going to tell you that 99% of the people who call me up and pay for a consultation with me because they're out hundreds of dollars, they probably would not be out hundreds of dollars if they had made that phone call up front. So yes, you don't have time, and yes, it's a hassle, but it's way more of a hassle when you don't make it and suddenly you're not getting paid. Your client can't pay the difference because you didn't call up front and realize that they don't have coverage for your services or something very major. So you can prevent huge clinical and practical and financial disasters by calling and checking coverage up front. It's totally worth your time. That's how I look at it. So I encourage you to avoid mistakes by following my 4 rules. These are my 4 rules for getting paid. Never trust what it says on a client's insurance card completely. Never trust what it says on the insurance website about that client's coverage. Never trust what a client says about their coverage. That one's a big one that has gotten me in trouble in the past. And actually never fully trust what an insurance plan representative tells you on the phone about their coverage. But I still think that's the best option. I can tell you lots of reasons why you shouldn't trust 1, 2, and 3. Insurance can actually have on the card the address that to submit claims can be for medical and not mental health. A client's mental health may have been carved out to another health plan that is handling it that's not on the card. A client thinks they have Blue Cross and they actually have Blue Shield, or they think they have Cigna and it turns out that's what they used to have. You need to call and find out if the coverage is active, and find out things. You know the questions to ask, and don't, people say, well, I just tell my client to call. No, the clients you can barely understand what they're telling you. It's not a great idea to have your clients call and check their coverage.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that can be a huge barrier for clients. And then our next question from Ellen. So what do I ask when I call the health plan to check for coverage?
Oh, Ellen, great question. So I have put together a checking coverage handout with 12 essential questions, and I've updated it. If you've gotten it in the past, I've updated it for telehealth questions. So it's even better. So again, this is a free giveaway. You just need to go to that theinsurancemaze.com/SP join and click on the link, and it'll be given, well, you'll have to give your email address first. It is a trade-off if you're willing to join my email list to get great updates on things that are happening in the insurance world. And you can get this lovely handouts, both of these handouts. And again, we have the link for the mailing labels for California folks and lots of other great resources, including my book, which will take you step by step through working with insurance, answer all your questions. I also have webinars just on what everybody should know about working with insurance that will go into all this much more depth.
All right, and then several people asked, is it true that insurance doesn't cover adjustment disorders, couples therapy, missed sessions, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. So for some reason, it's gotten out there that insurance doesn't cover adjustment disorders. I mean, I have found this to be completely untrue. And most of my clients, I feel like, have adjustment disorders. So insurance seems to, in fact, don't think I've ever come across an insurance plan that doesn't cover adjustment disorders. And in fact, some of them are, well, I don't want to go into the diagnosis there, but the bottom line is I don't think you have to worry about that at all. I don't know why that myth is out there. Couples therapy, again, for the most part, commercial insurance will cover couples therapy as long as there is an identified patient in the room. There's someone in the room who has a diagnosis more than a DSM-Z code, which is what used to be called V codes, right? So to me, there's two things if you want to bill insurance for couples therapy. Number one, someone in the room that is a member of an insurance plan has a diagnosis more than a Z code. And number two, you can say with a good ethical clinical belief that what you're doing in couples therapy is helping to alleviate that diagnosis. If what you're doing in couples therapy has nothing to do and it's not helping that person's anxiety disorder or depressive disorder, then I don't think you can make a case. You can't make a treatment plan around it. Don't bill insurance. But again, I think in most cases, couples therapy is absolutely fine to bill to insurance. I have a whole webinar on this because people take issue with me on this. And I have a whole webinar on, is it ethical? What about choosing identified patients? How do you choose identified patients? When there's a lot of fraud going on with couples therapy billing and kind of some of those things. And then also about ethical dilemmas in couples therapy, which I really love that juicy topic. So look for my couples therapy webinar at my store, theinsurancemaze.com. on my store page. Missed session. Insurance typically does not cover missed sessions. However, insurance typically, and you have to look at your contract, allows you to bill the client directly for missed sessions if you have that in writing ahead of time with the client that, hey, here's my missed session fee, insurance won't cover it.
All right,
Maggie?
I lost control for a moment of the webinar. Give me a moment. All right, next question from Jamie is, what should I think about before becoming an insurance provider?
Yeah, I put a few things. So before you join plans, consider what your income needs are. I do not recommend everybody join insurance plans. If you have 1 day a week for your private practice and for whatever other reasons you have, and you only have 8 available sessions, you don't really probably want to join insurance or a lot of insurance panels, because then all 8 of your slots or many of your slots are going to be discounted, and maybe you need all 8 of those slots to make as much money as you can. So it really depends. You have to think about what are your income needs, how much do you need to make each week, take into account missed sessions that are unavoidable. Some you can get paid for, some you can't. So kind of figure out how many discounted sessions you could afford to have, and maybe also just ask yourself, are you doing fine in your practice without insurance? I mean, you don't have to take insurance. What would motivate you to take it? And are you basically willing to do, and I don't know, this may be down there further, are you willing to do some of the work outside of sessions? Because it's a pain in the neck. I'm not going to tell you it isn't, to do the paperwork and stuff, but are you willing to do that in order to maybe increase your number of referrals and to increase the diversity of clients that you can work with and make it more affordable? How comfortable are you with marketing? If you don't do the insurance route, then you may need to step up your marketing, website work, trying to get people into your practice as clients, self-pay clients, and you may have to think about that. Are you reasonably organized? Would it be difficult for you to keep track of payments from clients and insurance plans and figure out, oh, okay, they paid this much for which date did they pay for, and how much do I need to collect from that client? Have I collected all their co-payments, and what did their insurance say about their coverage? Are you set up to file claims electronically? Or at least are you willing to learn? Because of course that's the easiest thing to do these days, is to file your claims electronically. Would you resent talking to a care manager on the phone about your treatment? I think a lot of people sign up to work with insurance, but then they get really resentful either about the fee or about the care manager discussion. And I think you just have to go in knowing that, hey, if I join a plan, I might have to occasionally talk to a care manager, and I might have to take a discounted fee. But the way I look at the discounted fee, I say to myself, yeah, I am getting a discounted fee, but they are marketing my practice, and so I don't have to spend money on that or time, and I'm getting to see people. So you just have what's the trade-off, and does it feel like a good trade-off for you? It isn't right for everybody. All right, let's see. Do we have a few extra ones that I threw in the end here?
Yep, we have a few extra questions. This is a good one, and this I actually saw some people in the chat asking is, do I have to take all referrals the insurance plan sends me? And do I have to take everyone that contacts me, every one of their members that contacts me?
No, absolutely not. Basically, you have complete control over how many people you see, when you see them. If somebody's not appropriate for you to see, you intake them and you're like, yeah, this doesn't seem like a good referral, nobody at a plan is going to tell you that you have to take all of them. However, what you can't do is say, oh, you were referred by Cigna. I don't have any insurance slots left in my practice, so you can pay me out of pocket. You can't transfer an insurance client where you have a contract with their health plan to make them a private pay client. But no, you absolutely just have the ability to say, I'm sorry, I'm full. anytime you want to any client.
And then another question from Alan, which insurance companies allow an associate to work under an LMFT?
Yeah, this is when you would have to contact each insurance plan and kind of find out what their rules are. I would say in general, many insurance plans do not reimburse for pre-licensed people. They're already don't even want to reimburse for licensed people. So even if the associate is working underneath an LMFT, what I would say is just be really careful that you don't make it look like the LMFT provided the services. That could be fraud. So I would contact each insurance company that you want to bill and find out what their rules are for pre-licensed billing and whether they cover. Sorry to say that this is going to vary by state and by insurance plan.
And then our last of the pre-selected questions, this is one that's coming up in the chat a lot as well. Can you talk a little bit about EAPs?
Do I have a see next slide on this one? I didn't think I did. No. Okay. I say see next slide, but there isn't a next slide on it. Just really quickly, because this is a big topic too. An employee assistance plan is kind of like insurance, but kind of not. Basically, this is a free service that or free employee benefit that many companies offer to their employees and families. And it might be something like, hey, we're going to give you 5 sessions or 6 sessions with a counselor if you want one at any time, and we're going to make that free to you. Now you have to see somebody in our EAP network. So from your point of view as a therapist, you would have to join that EAP provider network, just kind of the same way you have to go about joining a insurance plan network. But once you're part of that network, you're going to get people who contact you and they were referred by their employee assistance plan. It's free to them, which is cool. The cool things about employee assistance, besides the fact that it's free to them, is that you can see clients with any issue. They don't need to have even any kind of diagnosis. Whereas for managed health or insurance, I didn't mention this, insurance is not going to cover any kind of services unless there is a diagnosis, a mental health diagnosis, more than just a Z code. So insurance will only cover when your client has an anxiety disorder, depressive disorder, any kind of mental health diagnosis that's more than a Z code. Whereas an employee assistance program, they can come and just talk to you about, I hate my mother, or my husband's a jerk. That's fine. So that's cool. And the thing with employee assistance plans is that usually it's a limited number of sessions and it's just an employee benefit. And then after that, very often that person has gotten kind of a taste of therapy and they're like, hey, I kind of like working with you. And then they could potentially become a private pay client. So while they sometimes pay less than, they might pay 70 or 60 or something, I'm just throwing out numbers, and you might be like, oh, I don't want to join something that pays that little. If after 5 sessions they then can become a private paid client, it may financially still make sense for you. So it's something to think about. A lot of people like working with employee assistance plans that don't like so much working with insurance. They're sometimes easier to work with and kind of more short term. And sometimes you get kind of a higher functioning clients because they are working fully. And anyway, it's nice because I like it because some people go to an EAP and it's free that wouldn't normally go to therapy. Sometimes you get particularly men who might not go otherwise, but and then they like it. So that's kind of cool. All right.
And then we have about a minute left. I know you had some bonus questions here on the last slide.
It's just basically, hey, here people, you guys asked a lot of cool questions, and the answer was basically, they're not on topic of what we're talking about today. So definitely you're going to go to the Ask a Biller webinars on these topics of couples and out-of-network billing and audits and double insurance. It's too much for us to get in today, but we have webinars on all those topics. So thanks, Olivia and Rachel and Yvonne and Gina and Megan, for all your questions, but go to the Ask a Biller series, which I think she'll put in the chat for you again. And I have pre-recorded courses on those same topics at my web page store. So.
And then just to remind everyone, Barbara, where they can find their freebies. It's in the, skip over the next slide and go to the next.
So that's where everything is. Anything we talked about today, to the highlighted yellow link there, go there at any time. And as soon as you type in your information, you'll immediately be redirected to the page with all the links. So just keep looking at the screen. It's not going to come to your email address. It's just going to take you immediately to the landing page, I call it, with all the things we were talking about today, the free handouts.
Awesome. And as a reminder, if you have questions that are related to billing insurance and your SimplePractice account, visit support.simplepractice.com. You can sign up for some of our free classes there. And this webinar will be recorded and will be on the site simplepractice.com/askabiller series, along with all previous recorded webinars on a huge range of topics. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Barbara, for spending time with us and talking through everything.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks Maggie for being here.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.